And now, ladies and gentlemen, the movies you should watch this Halloween to give you a fright, a scare, and maybe open the door if you dare.
On today's episode of Kung Fu Hot Dog.
I said I was coming.
Are you coming?
Kind of busy right now.
And I'm coming for it, Ken. I'm coming for the fucking money, you piece of shit.
I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling.
In the ass end of space, even aliens watch Jason King with Kung Fu Hot Dog.
This is the greatest show I've seen in my life.
Duke Nukem likes this guy.
Approved by 1970s Robert Redford.
When it comes to big bad action stars of the 80s and the 90s, only one man springs to mind. Hauer, Rutger Hauer, an absolute behemoth when it came to cult classics like The Hitcher. But I want to talk about my favorite film of his. Well, one of my favorites that I recommend you watch this Halloween, Split Second from 1992.
Rutger Hauer. Split Second. Nice timing. Split Second.
Co-starring Kim Cattrall, who you see in her absolute topless glory, well, except for her lower half, but my God, Kim was packing the goods then, and Neil Duncan as Durkin. Dick Durkin.
Paranoid people with guns are a menace to society.
You'd be paranoid too if you had a dipshit like this following you.
And it's all set in the future London of 2008. It's a B-movie classic. I sometimes watch these B-movies and think, why the hell do we always go on about AA rated movies? Because there's no such thing as an A-movie production anymore. It's all played by ridiculous behind-the-scenes politics. But the B-movies are just glorious to watch. And Rutger Hauer, who spent a lot of his time as Stone, Harley Stone,
Now he lives on anxiety, coffee and chocolate.
in a very weighty overcoat, in a very bleak version of London that honestly is quite true to life. So one of the things about this film that I absolutely thought it nailed on the head. This is 1992, remember, how in the future climate change would make the water rise in London. And quite clearly, when you've considered the turbulent reign we've had in this country in the last few years, that seems to ring rather true. How they shot these sequences in these locations is beyond me. It's a very low budget movie, but my God, it's so fantastic. And if you've seen the trailer, I've actually used it in my opening titles very briefly. Harley Stone has this connection with a monster that is going around London slaughtering lots of women. Why? Because it's a B movie. Of course, Stone has a telepathic link with his creature.
He can hear its heartbeat.
Where did he go?
He knows it's out there. Somebody must have seen something.
And even at one stage, when he unloads 50-point Magnum shells into the thing, it still walks around like, yo, bro, can't you hit me with something more? And I've got to say, the pacing of this movie is fantastic. It never lets up. I think the name for Hauer's character is a bit of an in-joke from Wanted, Dead or Alive, another DVD, my absolute badass Rutger Hauer collection. I love this guy. He was so good. He also did those beer commercials, but you forget, even no matter how bad the premise of a movie might be, like Blind Fury or The Hitcher, which is an absolute classic, Rutger Hauer always brought his A game. You never get someone like him again. He was a nice guy in real life. I never got the chance to meet him when I worked at Planet Hollywood. I think if I did bump faces with him, it would have been an amazing experience. And at one point in this film, Split Second, which made me giggle a lot, because when we first meet Dick Durkin, as played by Neil Duncan, and he's paired up with Stone, the two don't get on well. Their characters hate each other.
Now it's really pissing him off. And his new partner
I work alone.
makes two.
Because Durkin is this Oxford or Cambridge educated egghead who's never experienced life, but he knows about the occult and what certain signs mean, because again, the creature that they're both hunting, that's slaying people around London, seems to have supernatural abilities, and it's uncovered much earlier on in the film where this might lead our two intrepid detectives. And by the way, if you see the police force they're working for and where it's located, it's like an underground police force. So it's one of those things where you've got the normal police on the surface level, but below you've got the police force that deal with the real shit in London. And I'm not talking just about gangs, it's just the weird stuff, man. It's just pretty bleak and rather too accurate if you ask me. But there's a moment in the film where they start to get to like each other and they're teasing each other about their names, but you can almost see the smirks in the actors' faces that they just cannot keep a straight expression. It's a really funny thing to watch, and I really appreciated that.
Honey. I'm working with a guy called Harney.
You think that's funny?
And I got to say, so much respect for Rutger Hauer, because when many actors or actresses will just say, B movies, I don't want to be in these things, he knew it was a lifeline, it was a career for him. He was able to take the smallest role and turn it into something absolutely massive. And Rutger Hauer, man, he had a great screen charisma, a presence.
I got nipples like bullets.
He would make a B movie look almost like a movie in respect, because he just chewed up the material, he would spit it out, he would have fun, and there's some great action set pieces in this film. Are they as good as, say, a Joel Silver production like Predator? No, they're not. They're not meant to be that good. They're meant to be their own little thing. But if you can kind of sit back and watch this film, have a few pizzas by your side and a nice big can of Coke, you're going to have a good time with this movie. Kim Cattrall, she's not in the film too much, but she's like a love interest for Harley Stone. And like I said, Kim gets her cacks off and it's quite a nice sight to behold. But if you haven't seen Split Second from 1992, make sure you buy the 101 release. I believe there's another version out there, I'm not sure if that's true or not, where there's an alternative ending, but I thought 101 films do that sort of thing. I got one on Blu-ray a couple of weeks ago, and it's been an absolute blast to watch. There's a ton of special features, and I'm going to be watching Blind Fury very soon with Mr. Hauer, and also that classic from 1985 or 86, The Hitcher, with C. Thomas Howell when he wasn't blackfacing it in Soul Man. But on that one, folks,
What's so great about Dick Durkin?
Go sit in the car. Call me on the radio.
you know what Jack Burton always says at a time like this? Who? Me, Jack Burton. Yes, 1986. What a great time. What a great year it was for me back in my school days, in my lowest 6 years at school, because that's when I was getting into movies. And of course, one of the films that really struck a chord with me back then was Big Trouble in Little China. Now, my only distant memory of this film, because when I get into this explanation, it's probably a bit weird when I say it actually. Don't forget, folks, I was a very skinny wallflower back then. I am now, but that's not of my own volition. I'm trying to put the weight back on. But this damn thing that I've got in my lumbar region at the moment is just getting to me. But honestly, folks, back in the day, when I peruse through the Sun newspaper, but of course would have to get my kicks with the latest page 3 beauty of the day, usually Corinne Russell, then as I'd thumb my way through to the back, I would see a glorious ad for something called Big Trouble. And back in the days, folks, when you had to get the marketing out there for a movie, a lot of the film companies in the UK and obviously in America would pay big bucks to get their film advertised in the newspaper. But usually with Big Trouble, from what I could remember, the ads were usually small or medium sized, never a full page spread. That might have actually helped with the marketing of the film, because historically, it didn't do great at the box office, despite, I think America actually did a better job of publicizing the film with some really great TV spots.
Big Trouble in Little China. Rated PG-13. Starts Wednesday, July 2nd at a theater near you.
So the 1980s was a bit of an odd time for me because I was getting used to being a teenager back then. And when I heard about this film, Big Trouble in Little China, I didn't really know who Kurt Russell was because I hadn't really been privy to many of his films' back catalogue. I was more of a Clint Eastwood guy at this point and Charles Bronson, but as time has gotten on, I've learned to appreciate the great man himself, especially into the 90s. But one film I'm absolutely proud to own, and of course there is a plethora of Kurt Russell movies that I own, but Big Trouble in Little China, yes, I even have the Steelbook edition as well, and have a look at the other films I've got to watch of the great man Kurt Russell himself. So I'm not one of these tourists who say, oh, I like these type of films and I like this particular actor or actress. No, what I say is what I mean, basically. And honestly, back in the day, just sourcing these clips out to put in the video today of those TV spots just brought it all back, why I love this film so much. You put it side by side with anything else that comes out today from Hollywood, they can't even touch this movie with a 10-foot barge pole.
It's all in the reflexes.
But when it comes down to brass tacks, folks, the film has gained a cult status over the years, something that Kurt Russell has willfully acknowledged, and he's very grateful for that. At least the film has actually found this audience now. And now for the longest time as well, the film was very enjoyable for so many different reasons. Kurt Russell's delivery of his lines, very reminiscent and a very deliberate choice of John Wayne. He's even got the swagger.
I'm gonna tell you about an accident, and I don't want to hear act of God, okay?
He wears ridiculous disguises in a Who house when he doesn't need to because he's never been there before. I thought that was quite funny. The whole special effects with the beer bottles with his friend Wang, as played by Dennis Dunn. And of course, Dennis Dunn, you might know him to be Jack Killian's faithful colleague and employee or employer in Midnight Caller with the great Gary Cole. But in this film, he's really the MVP because you would think the guy's a bona fide martial artist. He ain't. He just trained to do specific scenes that made him look like a real badass who would go toe to toe with Jackie Chan. And of course, if you watched a follow-up later on in what they call the Apocalypse Trilogy, John Carpenter's films, he appears again, and I think he was doing martial arts again in the Prince of Darkness, which is an absolutely tutti-booty classic from Carpenter. But honestly, when I do sit down for Halloween films, and of course, The Hitcher arrived today while I'm making this video, so I'll be catching that later on, getting my Rutger Hauer overdosage, because you can never get enough of that man, can you? But right up there with him is obviously Kurt Russell, a very underrated screen gem of an actor, a national treasure as far as I'm concerned. The man must be protected at all times, at all costs. And I'm going to leave you with this final thought, folks. Imagine if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had gotten his way to remake Big Trouble in Little China.
Do you think the film needs a remake? What would old Jack Burton say at a time like this?
And one of the thinly veiled excuses Mrs. Dwayne Johnson had come up with his remake ideas was to have a better representation of culture in his one going forward, which for me is a big insult to John Carpenter because the man did no wrong with this original film and nobody was offended by James Hong's performance and everything else in there. Carpenter did his research before he commenced filming with this, and it leaves you with a very lasting impression. Of course, I also have the Pork Chop Express baseball cap right here, which I ordered straight from the horse's mouth, being eBay, from a company in America who sent this to me last year. And what more can I say, folks? If you haven't seen these two classics, do yourself a favor, watch them today or in the next couple of days afterwards, and you'll thank me in the comments below, won't you? And on that one, if you were me and if I were you, you may wish to return for the next video.
This is gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang. Total concentration. You ready, Jack? I was born ready.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Dream of me. I'll make your dreams come true. Everything's possible with me.